House of Dracula opens with the Count propositioning a scientist to cure his vampiric ways. Then Larry the Wolfman shows up and asks to be cured as well. Oh, and of course Franky is back too. But after Dracula tries to make a bride out of one of the doctor's hot nurses, he moves to destroy the vampire, but the Count instead infects the doctor with his blood, turning him into a fellow creature of the night. Kind of. Dracula then flees back to his coffin, but the doctor opens the lid, exposing Dracula to the sunlight, and he dies. And now that the scientist is a vampire, kind of, he goes mad, killing his gardener for some reason. However, he still has enough goodwill to cure Larry, who lives. McCurdy, he doesn't die. It's a miracle. It's a Universal Monsters classic people miracle. But then the doctor brings Franky back up to full power and strangles his other hot nurse, who is also a hunchback, and she dies. And then a bunch of cops get murdered and they die. Then Larry shoots the doctor and he dies. And that pisses off Franky, so he burns the place down, but not before transforming into Lon Chaney Jr. right at the last second, and then he dies. Did you understand that reference?
I did get that. I got that because they reused the clip.
They reused the same shot from Ghost of Frankenstein, where it was Lon Chaney Jr. as the monster.
He's like in all the monsters.
Yeah. They didn't think we'd catch that.
I caught it. You caught it.
Yeah.
We all caught it.
All right.
This film actually was in its inception before House of Frankenstein, but was titled Wolfman versus Dracula.
That totally makes sense, considering the script.
The original script had gone under heavy censorship twice, and then was shelved. Boris Karloff had signed a 2-picture deal with Universal, which had included House of Frankenstein. After that film had been a success, Universal decided to brush off the year-old Wolfman vs. Dracula script or treatment, or what do you want to call it, to make a follow-up. A new title was created, a new script was created based off that original script titled Destiny, but was quickly changed to House of Dracula because our cigar-smoking producer probably thought that was a dumb title for a monster film.
Wait a second. You can't just name it something artsy-fartsy, okay? It's got to have the monster's name in the f***ing title. Yeah, and then we're going to have another hunchback. Okay. But this time the hunchback's a girl. Is she hot? Well, no, because she's a hunchback. She's kind of ugly and nobody wants to get with that. What do you mean you're going to have an ugly hunchback? She's got to be f***able. Does it have tits? Does the f***ing hunchback have tits? Then it's got to be okay? Hey, give me another babe to molest.
Yeah, it should start off. It's like, well, we're going to have another hunchback in this one. There's too many dudes.
Hey, wait a second. Is this hunchback hot? Well, no, it's like the same one from before. No. Make it a hot chick. But, sir, she'd have like a huge hump on her back. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of into that.
Send her to my trailer.
Leave the hump.
In costume. You're like, whoa, what's going on there, guys?
Oh, wait, hang on. The Nans is talking to me. Go. Mm-hmm. That's a great idea, Nans. Hang on. Hey, you, watching this, give us money. Buy something. Buy a f***ing mug or a shirt so we make f***ing money so we can get hunchback sluts. Hunchback sluts, that just kind of came out. Become a member. I'm running out of f***ing cigars. All right, I'm done with my bit.
All right, you're done? Are you? Okay.
We will not let you make one of these movies and then name it something like Destiny. You can do Destiny of Frankenstein. You can do Dracula's Destiny, but you can't do something artsy-fartsy because we gotta make money.
Yeah. And to me, when I read that, I was like, I think maybe it would have like just a placeholder named like, we're going to call it something else, but it could also be that someone who's like, it's called Destiny. I'm like, that's a stupid title. House of Dracula sounds better. We did House of Frankenstein. Let's do House of Dracula. So obviously it's House of Dracula. You're probably wondering, why isn't Bela Lugosi back in this film? So supposedly some sources say that he was already slated to play him, like they were going to bring him back. But other sources say that because he was already, at this point in time, he was already contracted to other studios doing other stuff. And I didn't even mention this. There was another film a while back that was essentially a Dracula sequel, kind of like how we had a James Bond film that isn't an official film. He had kind of done other films for other studios that were pseudo, basically Dracula films. He was basically Dracula without calling him Dracula. So he's off doing other stuff, so they didn't have him back. So this film, of course, we get John Carradine.
Do you believe in the immortality of the soul?
Naturally, being a religious man.
Of the body?
Medical science refutes such a thing.
Just as it denies the existence of vampirism.
This film does suffer in many ways for the time and place it was released. For one, according to John Carradine, horror pictures weren't as popular because of the real horrors brought home from World War II, mentally and physically, of course. People wanted to see more lighthearted pictures like musicals and fantasy. Two, the budgets had to be cut to help the war effort, so whatever old sets they could reuse, music or clips from older films could be used, were implemented. Which kind of explains a lot of this movie. Yeah. Pretty much. You really love that. We're never going to get through this one. Of course, we have Lon Chaney Jr. again, but this time as the Wolfman. But this is not his last appearance, so he will be back. John Carradine returns as Count Dracula. When he talked about the character, he said that the script had him acting more like a dope fiend, looking for a cure rather than a sexual aggressor like the Bram Stoker novel. Glenn Strange returns for a second time as the monster. He said one of the first days of filming was the scene where the body was discovered in the cave. Supposedly he was very cold, couldn't do much about it because of the makeup. He's supposed to be dead, but he's like actually breathing when you watch the scene. So he's in all this mud and water.
But they do say
Still alive.
He's indestructible.
he's alive because he's indestructible, so he should be breathing in that scene.
Yeah, so he's just like in the cold. So apparently when they were shooting that was one of the first scenes they shot, and he was very cold. And so Lon Chaney offered him some liquor because that's what Lon Chaney does on set.
That's what he does, yeah.
As
Remember I
he's
said
loaded.
that in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman? I was like, he'll do anything. He just laid in that cold puddle. And you're like, yeah, he was wasted.
Yeah, he's wasted.
He was wasted.
So then Lon Chaney offered him some liquor to keep him warm. After that experience, he had said, this is Glenn Strange saying, so I was looped around. I could hardly get up. I got warm and then I got tight. But I think Chaney just about saved my life that day. So...
Wow.
Because of Chaney's alcoholism,
Cheers to that.
He was warm. Cheers.
Cheers to
Cheers to that.
That's what gets me through this.
And then finally, the only other person I believe, if I'm not mistaken, returning is Lionel Atwell, who was also in House of Frankenstein, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, The Ghost of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein. This is the 5th film in the series, all the Frankenstein sequels, essentially. But he would pass away not that long after this film was released.
That's too bad.
And I think his last role was in 1946. So yeah, so this is 45. So yeah, this was like one of his last, and this is his last film in this series.
There was one other guy. There's that creepy ass Irishman who looks like
Skeleton
he's
Nags,
the one who would
Nags,
molest your children.
He does
was
look
in,
like that, doesn't he?
He was in The Invisible Man's Revenge.
He's in The Invisible Man's Revenge.
He is terrifying to look at. I'm sure he's a very nice human being, but if you want to cast a child molester, you cast that guy.
His name is Skeleton Cags.
His name is Skeleton Cags. Okay, so he was a shoo-in to be in a horror movie. He looks like the Mad Hatter from the Batman series.
I could see that. Yeah.
That would have been perfect casting, but I've
Yeah,
never seen him in anything,
100%.
but he's terrifying because he or a leprechaun. He should just play a leprechaun in everything he's in.
That's all I have for this film. What are your thoughts? Do you like this movie? Do you love this movie? Is this your favorite movie, Charlie?
I really like living inside this movie. I want to be under the sheets.
Sounds a little
I want to
sexually
get intimate with
aggressive.
it. So the thing about this movie is that I'm going to be honest with this movie, about this movie. I'm going to call balls and strikes as I see them. This movie ain't perfect, but I wish the entire series had been more like this picture. And what I mean by that is we are in a castle the whole time, hanging out with monsters and creeps, and everything's always dark and creepy. I'm not making a cinematography and production design argument, I guess technically I am, but all I'm saying is that I wish all the movies were like this. But that being said, this one shares its title with House of Frankenstein that also struggled to tie together all of these elements, all these strings from all these different monster stories. And what we talked about in that one was that you could almost edit them apart from each other, and you could do that easily because it's like the Dracula stuff doesn't really have anything to do with the Wolfman stuff, doesn't have anything to do with the Franky stuff. Dracula and Larry are in one shot together. They don't even share any dialogue. The doctor flashes the cross at him, and so he runs out, and then Larry grabs the girl, and it's like...
That's it.
Well, there was some fruit there. We'll get to that. We'll get to the
we'll
fruit
talk
there.
to that,
but the point being that this movie is frustrating.
I'll agree with you on this. The one thing that I think this movie does at least well, and I feel like we missed it in some of these movies, I don't know what it is and it's not specifically cinematography, but that is related to it, is the atmosphere of this film.
The atmosphere and the mood.
What works for me is that we are in the creepy old house, and so the way that they film it is we get some of these shots that we haven't seen in a while. Like when we watched the very first Dracula film, you had a lot of these shots where the characters were much smaller in the frame because we're making the house look really big. They also saw that in Bride of Frankenstein, a little bit of that in Son of Frankenstein, where it was really showing off the grandeur of the area of where they were at in the set. And you see that in this movie where we have all these like kind of creepy angles, and the nurse Nina is like running, the hunchback nurse is like running through the castle and stuff. You see her, but it's kind of like she's very small in the frame compared to like the walls and everything.
Well, there's one shot where the doctor creeps away from camera towards the door, and he like shrinks down in the frame, and there's shadows all over the wall, and then that's when he goes through the
what
door,
kind of shadows?
He's cured again.
Wait, what kind of shadows?
I think they were evil shadows?
Evil shadows.
Evil shadows.
I can't remember if they were evil shadows or dark shadows, but maybe a mix.
But definitely a mix of both. And yeah, we also, there's also some of the lighting too, is like we get some of that lighting that we saw while the big back in Bride, with like lighting coming from under, especially when he's like evil,
when he's going crazy.
Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. He's basically Mr. Hyde, essentially.
Like,
at this point.
yeah, we get real mad scientist stuff from him towards the end. But first off, it took how many? 24. This is number 24. It took 24 movies to start off with some horrific fanfare instead of that upbeat fanfare. That like every movie was up until this point. That's what every movie was up until now. And then now we finally get this creepy opening. Could have used that earlier, but we're learning. It's 1945 now. We started in 1931. We're learning as time goes on. But anyway, the movie opens with Dracula showing up. It's not his house, but I guess the point is that he kind of takes over the house in a sense, so it becomes a house of Dracula. Whatever. They said, we're going to do House of Mad Scientist Man. No, name recognition. I got to make money. It's House of Dracula. But sir, it's not Dracula's house. What'd you say? You're fired.
Yeah, the last movie, it's like we were going to be Chamber of Horrors, and there was never a chamber, except for like it painted on the side of the wagon. Most of the movie, we're not even in a house. We're on the road for most of the film. This movie's actually in a house. Like, we're actually in a house for the majority of the film.
But here's the thing. This house, McCurdy, I'm pretty sure that this is Neiman's house from the last movie. So at the end of House of Frankenstein, the new Frankenstein and Franky run away from the mob and they sink into the mud. And then right there, they find him eventually, like if they fell through into the cave. It's the same castle. It's the same castle grounds where they fell into the quicksand and then they came out in the caves. So we're in House of Frankenstein. We're not in House of Dracula. We're in House of Frankenstein Part 2.
I don't care. It's whatever. Who gets the give me a
name recognition. Nobody's going to show up to House of Frankenstein 2. They're going to show up to House of Dracula. Well, actually, it's actually still Frankenstein's house. You're fired. You're fired. Go get me another cigar and my name recognition, okay? Name recognition. We're trying to make money.
Give me one of them broads in the mummy outfit.
Hey, you. You've already my Go get me another. Hey, go get me another chick to molest. Not you. I've had you. What were you saying?
I can't with you. You're awful.
I'm
You're
awful?
terrible.
I'm just pointing it out, man.
Uh-huh. So we kind of talk about like the movie starts off where basically Dracula shows up. Hey, cure me.
You see, before you, a man who lived for centuries, kept alive by the blood of innocent people.
You ask me to believe that.
That's why I've come to you. To seek release from a curse of misery and horror against which I'm powerless to fight alone.
And then Wolfman shows up. Hey, cure me.
Dr. Edelman.
Yes. You wanted to see me?
That's why I came to Visaria. In the hope that you could help me.
Yeah.
And this movie basically becomes a sitcom or like a TV pilot for a show called Monster MD, where like
This week on Monster MD, the doctor cures the invisible man. What
Yeah.
wacky antics will they get up to? Whoa, that pen is floating. Hey, invisible man, hand me that pen. Whoa, thank you.
pretty
You know,
much,
it's just
yeah.
like,
That's
yeah.
like that's what it could have been, but it's not. It's just it doesn't work, and it just feels that way because the movie's just kind of just lingering. Like anytime you start going, hey, we got to cure the characters. I'm like, why is this so dumb? Like, why is
does
this
everybody
lost
wanna be
all of
cured?
the horror?
I feel that we're making progress, Baron. This photomicrograph of your blood reveals an odd condition. One which I can't account for as yet.
What is it, Doctor?
A different species of antibodies has appeared.
Why were they so long as the treatments are proving successful?
If a doctor effects a cure, he wants to know how he did it.
For it is of little concern to the patient so long as he's being cured.
It's a sitcom. This movie is like a pilot to a dumb sitcom.
Huh. Okay. Dracula's showing up to this place because he wants to be cured. Okay, that's
Right.
That's different. I don't right away. I'm like, that's weird. That's out of character because a vampire would love being a vampire. Vampire probably wouldn't want to be cured. You know, Dracula's
Right.
daughter's a different beast.
You're right.
That music tells of the dark, evil things.
I've never heard this music before, yet I'm playing it.
You're creating it. For me.
It frightens me.
It's beautiful. It's the music of the world from which I come.
It makes me see strange things. People are dead, yet they're alive.
So Dracula shows up wanting to be cured. He says to seek release from a curse of misery and horror, which means that he's not all animal. Again, going back to episode 1, like it's a metaphor for, you know, the duality of man, that animal inside. But Dracula, you know, dead and loving it, right? Like he shouldn't have remorse for being a monster. And yet here, he's more like Larry. He's aware of the sins he commits when he turns. Larry's always haunted by, oh my God, like the alcoholic.
Yeah.
What did I do last night? What did I say on the podcast? Oh my God. But we don't really see Dracula struggling to be good. So like, okay, let me round out that thought. So in the same way, now Dracula's aware of the misery and horror that he inflicts, and it feels bad about it, even though he shouldn't. That's out of character. But okay, I guess I can accept that. But we don't see Dracula struggling to be good the way we saw his daughter struggle, right? She actually is struggling. She's like, I don't want to, but I want to, you know. So he's actively trying to convince the hot nurse to forsake the cross.
My world is waiting for you. Forsake the cross so that you can join me there.
Which we talked about extensively. We've talked about the cross extensively and why that's in these movies, and it's very important.
Yeah.
But we've covered that. But the doctor seems to be curing him. And yet Dracula is still after the hot nurse, which pisses off the doctor. He says,
I'm trying to save him. I've endangered the lives of all of you.
so all of a sudden he's like, oh no, I can't control this monster, right? Who again is like it'd be one thing if Dracula was like, I can't believe you fell for that. Me wanting to be cured, like that would be one thing, but we don't get that. So the doctor orders another transfusion right away.
I've been looking for you, Baron. You remember that I was puzzled tonight by the new antibodies.
Yes?
I know now where they came from. They're from my blood. We may be on the verge of an important discovery. So to check my theory, I'm going to give you another transfusion.
Now?
Immediately.
That's his method of like throwing together a quick execution plan. But what was his plan? To cure him? This final transfusion, was it going to cure him or kill him? Either way, Dracula is wise to it, I guess, and infects the doctor with his own vampire blood. But it would have been better had the doctor given her poison to use or something. Like he gives her something, like when he's not looking, inject him with this. Or in another movie, it would be pure garlic or even like liquid wolfsbane or something like that. So Dracula turns the tables on him, but again, we don't know if he was trying to cure him or if he was trying to kill him. It's vague in a way that doesn't work. I assume that the doctor wanted to try to cure him first before resorting to killing him, which is also a matter of convenience because Dracula should not have shown the doc where he sleeps because he's literally putting his life in the doctor's hands in a very unnecessary and foolish way that's really just convenient for the screenwriter.
Again, going back to sitcom thing, right when you have Dracula showing up saying, hey, you need to cure me, the movie's already in trouble. Like, we're already in trouble because you already know, like, wait, Dracula wants to be cured? Like, what Dracula is this? This guy's...
He's found Jesus, McCurdy. No, Dracula doesn't find Jesus.
Yeah, Bela Lugosi Dracula was, like, the best Dracula we've had in the series. And then we get Son of Dracula, who's just, like, a pussy. Right? Like, he's just like...
Again, that movie would have been good if he would have had an inferiority complex because he's not as good as Bela Lugosi.
But he's not. But he's not, like, and that's what's going... And then John Carradine in the last movie as Dracula was actually pretty good, even though he's very short-lived. So this movie would have worked better had it been the doctor is forced by somebody else, like, hey, we need you to cure Dracula for whatever reason, or we've captured Dracula and he's going to put a cure, or he has his own selfish motivations. It's of like, if I can cure Dracula, I can, rid the world of this evil or something, and he's just handed the Dracula, or like he tries to come and attack him and he stops him because he's like Van Helsing and he's smarter than him or something like that. Or outsmarts him.
Yeah, like I wanted to see Dracula in a cage or the Wolfman in a cage, which we only got briefly. And then after that, he's trusting these monsters to just exist in his house with two hot women. It's like you're gonna let Dracula be around these chicks and you're gonna let this Wolfman just roam free. Yeah. Start putting people in cages.
You know what it worked better even then is if he's like, if he never revealed that he was Dracula.
I'm Baron Latos from Transylvania.
In both House movies, he uses the alias Baron Latos, but at the beginning of this movie, he tells the doc straight up that he's Count Dracula. And it's just like the Alucard thing, where they don't use it for any kind of interesting reveal or effect.
I am Count Dracula, but I'm known to the outside world as Baron Latos.
He's still going by Latos.
He could have, and he could have gone by that in the beginning of the movie and then never told the doctor that he was really Dracula. Then the movie would have been, I think the movie would have made more sense in that, like, oh yeah, I'm trying to cure this guy. And then he doesn't realize, like, wait a minute, examined your blood. Something's not right with your blood. And then it reveals.
But again, we run into the issue of what does Dracula want? Does Dracula want to be cured, or was that a front to get access to this chick? Which, let me remind you, they gave Dracula in this story a backstory that he'd already met the hot nurse.
It's good to see you again, Baron.
You left Schönheim just as we were becoming acquainted.
I could hardly refuse the opportunity to become Dr. Edelman's assistant.
Now the chance has brought us together again, I hope to see you quite often.
Which is kind of pointless. It would have been better had she just been a temptation for him. Like pick a lane, right? Your lanes are either he had never met her and he is trying to get cured, he's trying to get better, he's coming to Jesus for whatever reason, but
and then
she's there and she's really
temptation.
hot. And so she's a temptation. And then the other lane is...
He's lying about being cured. He just wants to get to her.
Exactly. Because he met her in that other city or whatever, and she left. And so he's like, how do I get into...
How do I find this woman?
But then we're... Okay, too many ideas at once, because then we'll talk about some rules later, but like preview for that is the idea, like that lane of I'm going to lie would have been proper had the rule been introduced in this movie that you need to invite vampires into your home. So it's like, how do I get into this home?
Yeah, because he sneaks into the
house. I want to be cured. And then they invite him in. And then he has access to hot chick. But okay, so rather than having any familiarity, in my view, it would have been better had she just been a temptation for him, rather than having that familiarity, that backstory.
So we have two monsters in this house. And at least to point out what you were talking about with the lanes, right? At some point in the movie, we get like the Wolfman is the good guy, even though he turns into this wolf but him himself's a good guy.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have control over his monster tendencies. Where Dracula doesn't make sense because he does have control over those tendencies. We've never established that he never does have control. And then, of course, you have these hot women in there. So, like, I still don't understand why these movies can't figure out a way for the Wolfman to fight another monster over some chick, because it would make perfect sense in this movie where they're both fighting over the same girl. You know, he's, as a human, as Larry as human, is like, oh no, the monster, Dracula's after him. And then it so happens Moon comes out and he goes to attack, Dracula, and they actually can have like some kind of brawl or something.
He would be using his werewolfism for good that would redeem him for the audience. Because up until now, he is a murderer. He's a sympathetic character. Again, that's why Lon Chaney Jr.
He doesn't
is
have
the
control
best
over
at that
it,
role. He should only ever play the Wolfman because he's not that great at all these other roles, but he's really good at the Wolfman because he can project this innocence that evokes sympathy in the audience. So you have that element of Dracula and the Wolfman, and they're fighting over this hot chick. And yet, as I already pointed out, Larry and Dracula are only in one shot together when Dracula goes after the hot nurse in her room. That's it. They never speak. This is like the Star Wars sequels where it's like, oh, goody, we're going to hang out with the original 3 again. I can't wait to see when Luke, Leia, and when Hermione, who are they again? When Luke, Leia, and Han get together and catch up, and then they don't. And you're like, what the hell? How are you not having a scene where Larry and Dracula are interacting? That's why we're here. That's why we're here, and you're not doing that. This is what I mean, where you could edit each of these episodes away from each other, and you wouldn't mess up the movie, whereas the movie should be tying all these strands in ways that are really interesting for the audience, and don't.
I think
really.
that's all. Yeah, and I think that's also where I go back to, like, this feels like a sitcom because it's like you have 2 different episodes. You have Dracula episode and Wolfman episode, and it's almost like, the Doctor TV show, right? Like you have. He's dealing with, there's always an A and B story, and they're dealing with 2 different patients, and those patients don't really interconnect. But here it's like, I've got this one patient. He's trying to grape all my patients, and he's got this blood problem. And then I've got this other patient.
Did you say something about grapes?
And I got this other patient who turns into a crazy person when the moon is full, and then you've got the hot hunchback nurse who maybe is trying to get cured. And then it's like, no, I'm too good of a heart. You need to save Larry first. Like,
for some reason, he acts like fixing Nina's hump is a matter of life and death.
Then I must operate as soon as possible on you.
But doctor...
You are right, Nina. I am ill. It's impossible to know what the future holds.
There, doctor. You mustn't talk like that.
I'll operate tomorrow, Nina.
Then you must operate on Mr. Talbot. The moon will be full in a few days. We can't let him suffer again.
But you've waited such a long time.
Then I can wait a little longer.
That's more important than curing anybody else, which is...
for some reason.
Why? She can live with the hump, dude. Let's take care of... I mean, he takes care of the Wolfman, but, like, let's take care of more important things than the hump. She'll live, She's made it this far. To illustrate your point further, this movie would be as if, imagine if I gave this movie to you and you said, oh, is this one of your fan edits? Is this a film hack? And I'd go, yeah, film hacker worked really hard on this. This was 3 episodes of Monster Hospital, and film hacker edited them all into one thing. And you'd watch it and you would go, that was interesting.
Yeah.
It didn't really work like a movie should, but that was interesting that you I kind of get what you did, and there was a little bit of interaction. Yeah. But if you shot it fresh, you'd be like, how about these monsters interact a little bit more? How about Dracula at least has some kind of interaction with Franky? A little bit. Yeah,
because they could have meet, like Larry, they're like in the hospital beds, like, who are you? I'm Count Alucard, or I'm the Baron, but that brings
what if
up
they
a whole other point.
Dracula's blood with Franky's blood or the Wolfman's blood or something, but instead the doctor only ever used his blood, and then he said something about antibodies and like that. He was only vague about those things. It was like,
what's science? Yeah. What's in science? What science is popular right now? We got mold. and we got antibodies. Let's throw that in the movie. Sounds smart.
Just some dialogue about, this, that, or the other. Just science talk. Get that guy who does the science talk real good. And then they just write out just vague stuff, and you're sitting there going, no, I'd like to have something a little more specific, please. And they're
a little more concrete, something that makes sense.
You don't need that.
No, okay, so that brings me to a point, like we were kind of talking about that runs into one problem with this movie is inconsistency with the last movie. Now, in the past, we have pointed out that like the Wolfman comes back, and you're like, how did he come back? And
that breaks your own rules.
Frankenstein meets the Wolfman really is like the one that really is like, well, wait, he died in the last movie. Now he's back. He's like, yeah, he's back. He survived. But they kind of explain it in the opening of that movie.
I can't die.
And then when we get Frankenstein, it's like, well, every Frankenstein movie, it seems to be like, yeah, he crashed in a fire and then he woke up and he's back. And you're like, great. Another bad one, though, is like The Mummy, where you thought he died in a fire and then we never saw how he came back.
He comes out of the woods out of nowhere with zero explanation.
But this movie is really inconsistent with it. And it's only because whereas in House of Frankenstein, they're like, okay, Boris Karloff and the hunchback find the frozen body of the monster and the frozen body of the Wolfman. And you're like, okay, that kind of makes sense. It's like there was a huge flood. They maybe got frozen in some ice cave. This kind of makes it. I can believe that somehow they came across both bodies, and that was the last we saw of them. So I'm like, I can believe that. I can get behind that. This movie, however, is like inconsistent in those regards because it's like, yeah, it feels like the writers were like, oh yeah, we'll throw the monster in here somehow. Okay, well, where was the monster scene last? Oh, there was the sand and this. But at the same time, we are just not acknowledging at all that one, Dracula straight up dies in the last film. So they're just like, yeah, let's bring John Carradine back. It doesn't matter. Just he's back now as Dracula. And at the same time, Larry just shows up, even though he got shot with a silver bullet and there was kind of this whole death with it. Let's just bring him back. That's fine. Like I can believe that because I'm just like, whatever. But then because they bring in the monster and connect it to the last film, it's super inconsistent because Larry Talbot comes downstairs and doesn't say anything about the other doctor. You were there, Larry. You hung out with this dude. You were there with the monster. You're not going to say anything?
That must be the skeleton of Dr. Neyman, who revitalized him years ago. As the story goes, the villagers drove them into the swamp. They went down in the quicksand. For all these years, the mud has brought them here.
He never mentions anything about the monster, which you hung around, you fought him.
Yeah.
Nothing. There's no acknowledgement of that.
As we've talked about, it's because back then you're suffering from not being able to show flashbacks every 2 minutes to catch up on the last 20 movies.
Sure.
Whereas today, everybody's watched every movie a million times and they're all memorized. So, like, I can give them some kind of grace, but not on that. On that, it's like, it wouldn't take that much.
If Larry just acknowledged that, like, yeah, I remember that. Or, like,
if
oh,
he
it's
just
coming back
said
to me.
hi or anything, because any kind of acknowledgement wouldn't be, like, people wouldn't be going, how does he know him? It's like, well, he does. Clearly he does. Or a
because
couple
people
lines
would have
could
known,
fix
yeah,
that.
They met in this movie called Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman.
But even if you've never seen that movie,
you know?
even if you've never seen that movie, he even says, Larry says at some point, he's like,
Time after time, people have tried to help me. Time after time, they've failed.
okay, you don't need to have seen those movies. He just said it in one line. He covered off on the fact that he, this is like the 10th movie where he's trying to be cured of his werewolfism. So, but anyway, Larry, though, Larry does just kind of show up. He's just there without any kind of entrance, which you and I talk about all the time. For your important characters, give them... Dracula had a nice entrance. He had his, he flies in as the bat and he appears like something, even though it doesn't make sense because he died in the last movie. So anyway, Larry just shows up.
It would have been a better entrance for this movie would have been just been the second time they saw him, where he doesn't come to the doctor the second time. It's, hey, there's this guy here we caught.
He came in here a little while ago and demanded that I put him in a cell to keep him from committing murder, he said. I did it to humor him. But when he started raving, I realized we had something serious on our hands and sent for you. Decent sort of chap otherwise. Name of Talbot. Talbot.
Like
his name is Talbot. And they're like, Talbot? We're like, Talbot, cool.
He says he's a madman. We don't believe him. He thinks he's a werewolf. And then he's like, oh, I'll come and see him. And then, of course, this doctor who's obsessed with the supernatural, we rewrite it. And so this guy's obsessed with crazy, out of this world cures and all this stuff. he's like, I'm going to find him and I'm going to cure him. And of course he meets him and he changes into the Wolfman, of course. That would have been a better entrance than what we got.
I would have loved if the townspeople, because, as usual, we have the townspeople talk and all that, and them talking about how there has been all these deaths. And because, if Larry survived getting shot with the silver bullet from the last movie, then he would just be roaming around killing people, or every full moon people would be dying. And so people would be talking about that. Don't go out during the full moon. And so that would kind of give us that little foreshadowing, that little foreboding of like, ooh, the Wolfman is around. The Wolfman's around. And then, to your point, he's in jail. He says, lock me up, so I stop killing people. And so we have this kind of this slow entrance to, there's the Wolfman. Instead, he's just like, hey, I'm Lawrence Talbot, and I want to be cured. The doctor's not in right now. Blah, blah, and he runs off. It's just like...
And he's drunk.
Yeah, nobody cares.
Drinking.
Nobody gives a shit.
Comes in.
And then, on top of that, in the end, it's not even a curse that he has anymore.
Pressure upon certain parts of the brain. This condition, coupled with your belief that the moon can bring about a change, accomplishes exactly that. During the period in which your reasoning processes give way to self-hypnosis, the glands which govern your metabolism get out of control, like a steam engine without a balance wheel. When this happens, the glands generate an abnormal supply of certain hormones. In your case, those which bring about the physical transformation.
The doctor explains, he's like, oh yeah, it has nothing to do with the moon. That's all in your head. Your skull is squishing things in your brain and it's affecting your metabolism. So you just get really hairy when you see the moon. But it's not the moon, it's all in your head. It's just you see the moon and then your body freaks out and you grow hair.
It reminds me of Star Wars, where like for the longest time when people saw the original series, there was no scientific reasoning. It was all mystical and spiritual as to why any character could use the Force. And then when Lucas comes to do the prequels, he starts talking about midichlorians and people who have high midichlorians are able to use the Force.
And
it's
like,
scientific,
what?
and you're like,
yeah.
It took the mystery out of it. And then, of course, they kind of rectify that in the later films where they're just like, they don't really address it anymore. They're like, yeah, that people have the Force, Everyone has the Force.
Yeah, so saying this is in his head and then it's no longer a curse, it's like, how am I supposed to go back, to your point, it's like you go back and watch the previous Star Wars movies, it's like, okay, nothing's special now. You go back and you watch the Wolfman, you're like, oh, this is all in his head? What? Like, f*** that. Quite literally, f*** that up the butt. I don't like that because that flies in the face of everything I'm always saying, where this stuff is metaphorical. I love, at the outset...
Cases have been recorded in which the victims, driven by some abnormal urge, actually believed that the blood of other people was necessary to keep them alive, became psychopathic killers in order to obtain it. These beliefs probably upset their metabolisms, induced fixations, lustful appetites. Of course, the whole thing is of a highly speculative nature, particularly the supernatural aspect.
You doubt the supernatural?
I find it difficult to believe that a human being can change himself into a bat, or that by feeding upon the blood of the living, he can attain eternal life.
Very first scene, we're talking about science versus superstition. Again, this goes back to the first Dracula episodes where we talked about this extensively. The doctor explaining away the traits of the vampire or werewolf, whatever. He's explaining them in scientific terms. So I would love if he would have explained to Larry that, your symptoms can all be explained reasonably. And then he was wrong. It's still a curse, but it's not. They give him brain surgery or, cranial surgery, and it goes away.
With the mushrooms. You got to remember they do something with mushrooms and they're like, it softens the cranial tissue. And you're like,
Bavaria formosa produces a mold from which we've been able to distill, a substance which possesses the property of softening any hard structure composed of calcium salts. Bone, for instance. With this medium, it might be possible without surgery to reshape the cranial cavity and thus eliminate the pressure.
What? So you're telling me that science can cure werewolfism, that it isn't this curse and it isn't this, this satanic curse and all that. So turning into a bat, turning into a wolf, it's a metaphor for the duality of man. So it gets ruined when you inject real science into that.
Truth will flourish in fantasy, only to wither and die in what you are pleased to call reality.
Like we talked about in Dracula, vampires absolutely exist. They don't have to turn into a bat or turn into a wolf to exist.
There's a real world. There's a real world version of what we describe as vampires,
and then in
those
stories,
are really bad people.
And then in stories, we ramp that up with these visual metaphors to better tell that story. And then people come along and go, well, that's just a story. No, it's not just a story. It reflects the dark side of human nature. But to make a good movie, you want to heighten that. You want to turn those ideas into imagery like this, as opposed to explaining it away with realism. As I'm always saying, don't ruin a good story with the truth. So this science is ruining this right in front of me. Talbot asks,
do you believe that a man can be transformed into an animal?
I believe anything can happen in a person's mind.
And so, again, we're playing with science versus superstition.
There's no such thing as a werewolf. It's a belief that exists only in your mind.
But then he watches him turn into a werewolf, and he's like, but all the same, I think your brain is just too tight.
I think,
like, shut up.
So what you're telling me is both with Dracula, they screw up that character completely. They make him into like, I'm looking for a cure, and they're really muddy with it. And then you also have this werewolf story. You know, we have a wolf man who's now like, it's science. There's no actual curse. It's all in your head.
It's all in your head. Hey, everybody, forget about all the meaning behind Dracula and the Wolfman. Forget about the timeless lessons about the dangers of wrath and lust. Just get a blood transfusion and cranial surgery and all's well. It's insulting. Science can go ahead and solve problems in the real world, but there's no place for it in the world of allegory.
It's all scientific, and
but they contradict that.
Scientifically happened.
They do contradict that, though. So he jumps in the ocean, right? Because he's just like, you can't help me, so I'm going to go off myself. Jumps in the ocean. Later in the cave, he just turns off his werewolfness on a whim. Why? The first time I watched it, I didn't catch it. It is there. It's just, I kind of wish they would have illustrated it a little bit better. They have a quick exchange of dialogue so the nurses can explain it.
If Mr. Talbot has been swept into the cave down there, and he's still under the spell of the moon, we must wait till it sets. When it does, if he's still alive, he'll try to destroy himself again. That's why the doctor must time his actions to the very moment. If he can find him just as the seizure passes, and his reason returns, perhaps he can persuade him to want to live.
The doctor better get down there after the moon sets so he can reason with him, but it has to be after the moon sets so that he's chilled out or whatever. And it's subtle, but they actually do see the moon set. The hot nurse is turning behind her and seeing the moon going down, but Larry wouldn't have seen it. So is it all in his head or not? Because if it's in his head, he wouldn't have seen the moon go down, so he would have stayed as a werewolf because in his head, the moon is still up. But if the moon goes down and he de-transforms, then it does have an actual effect on him. Either way, they should have used a clear image of the moon setting to really hammer that, you know, like a cloud goes in front of the full moon, or like a big shot of the moon as it descends below the horizon, so that it would have communicated that. But don't you get what I'm saying? It still contradicts the idea that it's all in his head. And it is all in his head, because after he has the brain surgery, he goes and at the end of the movie, he stands out by the moon, and it doesn't have an effect. It's just like, stop.
Well, Charlie, I do like this. Okay, I do like this, but maybe this contradicts your point, is that we're talking about the tide, and we know the moon is affected by the tides, and so the tide is low, and so that's how he knows psychologically that he shouldn't be a werewolf.
What was that thing you always said back in Bond? Oh yeah, get he's choking him, and he's like, my God, the tide is low. What was I thinking? Like he just stops. Whereas in the past, we never saw that it was specifically that the moon is out. Like he needs constant moonlight on him to be a werewolf. It's just during the full moon.
They're never specific about the whole deal.
You know, so here they changed that, but it contradicts the whole science thing. It's frustrating.
Yeah. So we lead all of this werewolf Dracula stuff, and we never actually have them fight, which sucks. They have one little exchange we kind of talked about. They don't even exchange words. And then we shift the story again. Like the last movie, we talked about how it starts off with Dracula, then we get
and then Dracula
Wolfman,
dies.
And we finally get then Dracula dies.
Dracula dies and exits the movie.
And then we get the monster. This movie is like we get Dracula, Wolfman, and Dracula dies, and then the Wolfman's in it, but then we got to shift gears because we do finally give the Wolfman his like final send off, like he's cured, but then intermittent with that, we're like, we got to bring a new monster in. We got to fix that. So now we get basically Mr. Hyde. Like it's Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. They don't recall it that, but he's the mad scientist, and now he's sort of like a cross between Dracula and the Wolfman. But it's like not really clear as to what that is.
One of my complaints, it wasn't a huge complaint, but it was one of those things that I was like, I kind of wanted more in House of Frankenstein to, it's like Dracula's dead and then he's gone, and it didn't really have that much to do with the story. Whereas I do appreciate that here, it's the same. Dracula exits the movie, but it actually has an effect on the plot. The doctor going mad, like the whole scene of him going mad. I like that. I like the montage, and I like what's going on in the montage, and he's very good at just being very creepy. So Dracula may be dead, but he just kind of lives on versus what happened in House of Frankenstein. But yes, it's very odd. The whole idea that he gets infected with Dracula's blood and doesn't turn into a vampire per se, he just turns into a madman, is very weird. It's very weird. So that being said, let's talk about some vampire rules, and we'll head back to that. I have an interpretation. I want to ask yours. What's your, because we lead off the movie with this. We've talked about it in all these Dracula movies, but or it's been brought up in the movies themselves, but we haven't really talked about it. Why do you think soil from your grave is necessary? Which there's kind of a discrepancy there. Is it soil from one's homeland or soil from your grave where you were originally buried or whatever?
Homeland.
With my own two hands, I spread upon the floor of its coffin a layer of soil taken from its birthplace.
In Stoker's novel, it's his homeland soil. It's not his grave, so it's not.
Sometimes they say grave, but whatever. It's the same thing in a sense.
It's usually his hometown. That's not the right word. His home country, his motherland. It's usually that soil. But in the book of Dracula, they do talk about like blessing that ground and stuff. And you can kind of make the connection between like having holy ground or having sacred ground or whatever, where the ground that you're buried in, that becomes holy ground because there's a body, there's a soul. In the book, they do talk about how like they even bless ground that he brings, or the dirt that he brings, his dirt boxes, and that's kind of how they stop him in some ways, because they're like, he has all these dirt boxes around London or around Carfax. They one by one find them, they burn them, they bless them with holy water, and they're kind of like diminishing where he can go and that kind of thing. This movie, I don't think they even bring that up, other than his coffin.
He just says,
within this coffin is a layer of soil taken from my native country. That earth makes this my grave, in which I must lie helpless during the daylight hour.
Which that was kind of a funny thing, where it's like, you probably shouldn't have shown anybody where he sleeps, because that's
the last movie.
If you want to be killed,
last Dracula, not the last one,
Son of Dracula. The whole thing was that he was hiding it.
Hides his where he sleeps.
Yeah. So the moment that he backslides, where he's like, "Psych, I actually want to suckle your hot nurse." The doctor's like, all right, well, I know where you sleep, bitch. I'm just going to go burn it. He tells Hunchback, he's like,
if anything should happen to me tonight, go into the old armor room in the basement and burn what you find there.
What is it, Doctor?
You'll understand. You must destroy it by fire.
That's an oddity, especially because Dracula tells Hot Nurse, he's like, I'm actually staying in a place nearby. So I'm like, wait a second, I thought his coffin was in the basement of this house. Is he just saying that? Like, he probably should have gotten a place nearby and put the coffin there. But anyway, whatever. They're like simple. It's as if they're simplifying things because, again, we're cutting costs. So whatever. But my interpretation, based on everything I've said previously about vampires, my interpretation, not really knowing what Bram Stoker's intention was, everything I say about vampires, there's a certain immaturity to them. In a single word, vampires are selfish. And he explains that in the opening of this movie. He's like, I have eternal life because I feed off of the innocent. I drink their blood. I live on. They all die. So thousands of people die so that this one person can live. It's a very selfish way to live your life. Again, the way I'm always putting it is the evil of the vampire is sacrificing other people for his own desire to survive and to feed and all that. So that's what evil is in my definition. So there's a certain immaturity to that. There's an immaturity to selfishness to that level of selfishness. So the soil from your homeland, to me, is kind of representative of that immaturity. Like, you're unable to go out into the world without, let's say, instead of soil from your homeland, it's almost like Dracula has a security blanket. He's like, yeah, I always have this security blanket with me when I sleep. Like, he's in his grave with his security blanket, suckling his thumb, you know, because he's a selfish little baby boy. You know, he's not a mature adult capable of sacrificing his innate animal desires for other people. He does the opposite. That's what makes him evil. So it's like he's unable to go anywhere in the world without this little piece of home, whereas adults have to eventually leave behind childish things and go out into the world and act as adults and be good people, sacrificing for others, as opposed to Dracula, who's like a little child, essentially, who never grew to that level of maturity. And so he always needs this piece of his homeland with him at all times. Another one in this one, we talked about vampires not having reflections. We never talked about what it means.
Why vampires don't have reflections?
I don't know if you Google it and it'll give you an answer, but it's pretty obvious to me. I'll give you a hint. Woohoo! That was my hint. Chick Mona! Chick Tabita! Woohoo! That's my hint to you.
Is it because you have no soul, and because he has no soul, he can never see himself in that? Or
what
wait,
happens
didn't we talk
when you
about
look
this?
in the mirror?
You're disgusted by the... Oh, no, we talked about this before, and I know you and I've had this discussion. In other interpretations, it's not so much that you don't see your reflection, it's that he sees the true version of himself that he should be.
Yeah, he sees his true form, like his ugly self.
If he was actually as undead as he looks, he would look like this disgusting beast that he could never put his eyes on.
Yeah.
But in these movies, they interpret it as no one can see his reflection.
So it depends on the avenue you're taking. So if a story takes the path of when he looks in the mirror, he sees his true form, and it's this ancient, decrepit old man that's abhorrent to him, that's one. And there's great meaning there.
You can also
you
can make a connection to just narcissism as well with that, where you're like, you don't want to. You look at yourself in the mirror and you see the disgusting deformities. You see the pimple. You
can't face yourself in the mirror because I would love if this series included the portrait of Dorian Gray. Like I love that. Is it the picture of Dorian Gray? The picture of Dorian Gray. I would love to cover that sometime. That's fantastic. That has to do with this guy unable to look at this picture of himself because every time he sins and ages, his body doesn't reflect his sins, which most people do. You eat too much, you get fat, you bang too much, you got sores all over your mouth. Like, sinning
There's a lot of
tends to manifest on your person. So instead of himself becoming old and ugly, it's the picture that becomes old and ugly, which, by the way, Dorian keeps this portrait of himself secret from other people by hiding it away in his old childhood bedroom, emphasizing his immature inability to let the past go and accept mortality, much like what we've said this whole time about Dracula and death being a gift and all that. That's what makes the picture of Dorian Gray genius. And so that would be the one interpretation, that Dracula looks in the mirror and he sees his true form and it disgusts him because that's where all the sin is.
Right.
Meanwhile, he's still perfect and young and all that. But that's not in this series. This series so far, you just don't have a reflection at all. Very simple to interpret that. It's just that, you know, you and I, we have souls. We have a reflection. We look in the mirror. And when you know, that's why that was my clue, was that Michael Jackson, you know, man in the mirror. When you look at yourself in the mirror, that action of looking at yourself in the mirror is literal self-reflection. That's why they call it self-reflection. Can you face the man in the mirror with the horrible things you've done? Anybody who can look at themselves in the mirror can think to themselves, I need to improve. I haven't been, like, look at me. I'm horrible.
Yeah.
I'm doing these awful things. So when the doctor's reflection is disappearing, at the same time, so too goes his self-awareness that he's this madman. And so that's what's weird, is that the doctor is not a vampire, though. He's a madman. He's only strangling people. He's never biting them. But then another weird thing happens with the doctor, where shouldn't the doctor be impervious to bullets?
Yeah,
Yet he gets
there
shot?
should have been something there where he's, because again, like, they make him sort of like a wolfman. It's like climbing on stuff, and it's like he acts more like a wolfman than he does a vampire.
Exactly.
Other than we never see him turn to smoke. He doesn't turn to a bat. It's almost like they changed something the last second, where they were like, oh, he was going to transfuse with the wolf, and then that got changed in the script and they didn't change it back or didn't clean that up.
And they didn't have
'Cause he
somebody
acts
there
more
to
like
be
a
like,
wolf.
hang on, well, actually, that contradicts
Yeah, it makes more
previous
sense. Like
things.
it's more like because it's more like he's closer to a Wolfman in the same regards of like Werewolf of London. Because it's like he's not fully Wolfman, but he does change and change back. It's not like Dracula never changes back. He's consistently Dracula.
It comes and goes.
Yeah, there's no we don't get a moon. There's nothing that
Triggers
explains
it.
that.
Nothing triggers
There's nothing
it.
that triggers. Because like even because again, the closest thing that I was watching this movie, this is Universal throwing in a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. But there's no like he takes the serum at night or there's a moon. There's no rhyme or reason why he transforms.
And he is a
Some of it's
doctor
by
who
will.
could come up with a serum to like repress this weird
There's no
bloodlust.
reason for it. It's like a whole other plot line that, again, this is the hospital movie that you recut together or the monster series. You're like, I'm gonna just take the Wolfman and the Dracula episodes. Those were the best ones. I'll throw a little bit of the Dr. Jekyll monster episode in there, and then just for fun, I'll put in the Frankenstein
right at the end,
monster.
right at the end, because I couldn't come up with a good ending, so I just needed Franky to come in and shut up. But like the one thing that's in there where he does, okay, I know this is dumb. Like I said, I'm calling balls and strikes where I see them. This is dumb.
This is dumb. Okay.
He does mention, he's like, your cure is on the way. There were these weird antibodies forming.
You remember that I was puzzled tonight by the new antibodies.
Yes.
I know now where they came from. They're from my blood.
I don't know if that was a lie or not. He could have been lying to him because he wanted to get Dracula into the transfusion room so he could kill him. But is that why his fits of manic craziness come and go?
Don't know.
Because
probably
because he's got
Science.
antibodies.
Science.
Like,
It's some
whatever. Put some
antibodies.
science
Don't
talk in there.
care.
I don't give a shit.
They'll love it.
Hey, I said keep my while I'm podcasting. Sorry. Where's my cigar? Crap.
Oh my god.
Anyway,
I can't. Can we? So
more booze. Someday my neighbors are going to be like, we hear you. Like, are you a lunatic? At night,
he is a lunatic.
At a full moon, all we hear is yelling about
when the
cigars
when the
and
jackass, when the jackasses are out, right?
Jackass,
Jackass.
To repeat the opening, the movie opens with Dracula staring in the window at hot nurse, which it kind of would have been an appropriate story to then, as we already talked about, to introduce the whole inviting a vampire into your home trope. That
Which
idea.
I don't think we got
it's not in the series.
any of these movies.
It's not in
this movies. This
not
series,
in the series, but
and
that
I
one
don't
too.
remember if it's in the book.
Yeah, I don't know either. But I do love that rule because again, we're still talking about vampire rules. I love that rule because that one also is very easy to interpret. The elementary interpretation there is if evil comes into your home, you probably brought it upon yourself. You probably invited it into your home somehow. Because all the time people want to claim like evil just happened to them. Oh, this horrible thing happened. I didn't do anything wrong. It just happened to me. I'm a victim of circumstance. Most of the time, if you dig a little deeper, they invited it on themselves. They did something or they didn't do something. They got lazy, whatever it may be, and they invited evil into their home. So it's a terrific trope for the vampire. But it's not here, which is unfortunate because that would have been a cool mechanism for Dracula to try to talk his way into the house or whatever. Because it begins with him looking in the window at hot nurse. But then he just enters the house. He's like, hey, what's up, doc? And the doctor's like, who are you? I'm a guy. Let's go in your basement.
It's 5 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing here?
Yeah, what are you doing?
Why are
He's
you
like,
up at 5 o'clock in the morning?
He's like, I want you to cure me. He's just like, okay, I'll trust you with my house and all the hot women in it. You mentioned the monster coming back. I actually quite like the way the monster enters the plot. It's concurrent with where he was before. Again, one of my biggest complaints is when they don't do that.
That's like,
so he just, so he
it does work
there.
in that sense. It's just that we don't acknowledge Larry in the room. It's like he never acknowledges anything about that. It's just like so.
Other than the
happens,
fact that he
that.
does recognize him.
The Frankenstein monster.
Larry's the one who says that. Larry's like, check it out, like as if there is some recognition.
But his recognition would have been more familiar. It wouldn't have just been, hey, it's the monster. It's like, I fought, it would have been more personal. Been like, I fought you.
This
I remember.
guy. Yeah. But you're talking
like
about
that.
when he came back, but like, once again, they do that thing where the monster he's not at full power, so he's sleepy all the time. He's very tired all the time.
He only had 3 Tanna leaves. He didn't have
exactly.
the 9.
Yeah. So they should have given him 9,000. But overall, Franky's just never really utilized. He's just kind of background again,
It's
which
literally
kills
It is
me.
literally the last. I mean, he is in the movie a little bit longer than this because he's in. Well, the first time they show him, and then they bring him upstairs, and then we kind of get a recall to the Bride of Frankenstein where Hunchback's like, "No, you shouldn't do that. We need to be for man, not for science." And he's like, "Okay, you're right. You're
It's
right.
a good scene.
You're right."
I mean, they're
You know?
literally laying out the complex morality of the overall Frankenstein story as previously laid out.
Triumphant climax of Frankenstein's genius. The heart that Frankenstein gave him never died. The spark of life is still there, waiting to be revived.
Dr. Edelman, this thing destroyed Frankenstein. It's brought death to all who have tried to follow in his footsteps.
Is that poor creature responsible for what he is?
It's a thing of violence, to whom death would be a merciful release.
Can man sit in judgment over life and death?
The evil he creates, he can also destroy.
That would be murder.
Think what you're doing, Doctor. To bring him back again, Doctor, would unleash worse than murder upon humanity.
That helpless body is man's responsibility.
Man's responsibility is to his fellow man.
Perhaps you're right, Nina. Frankenstein's monster must never wreak havoc again.
I appreciate that scene for giving us a quick recap of all things Frankenstein, even if it's very quick. But we're only teased with maybe what is going to happen if he brings him back to life. So when the dark side of the doctor is like fantasizing about bringing the monster back and he's going to sick him on the town and we're going to kill everybody, it's this mad fantasy he's having. And it's like, maybe this is what would have happened had everybody not blown up in the end. And we're only teased with it, whereas like, I kind of would have liked to see that happen. Like maybe in a bigger budget movie, it would have been more than just a fantasy, but it does technically, like that scene though, where she's like, don't bring him back because danger. Technically, that does set up the ending where Franky just blows everything up, but it is still weak. It is weak that he's just
like,
there
and it
to
is
blow
the last
everything up.
five.
In the end.
It is like close to the last 5 to 4 minutes of the movie. That's not very much screen time. This movie's an hour long, and it's like only 5 minutes of the end of the movie is just dedicated to the monster, and it's just so happens it brings him back, and then we kind of go into a clip show and he's like destroying things, and that's the end of the movie. And you're just like, okay, house burned down from Ghost of Frankenstein, and like you said in the intro, it's like Lon Chaney miraculously is now playing the monster in this one clip from that movie.
They reuse a lot of shots, but for that last one, they chose a very distinct shot that stands out because of that thing hitting his head. It's just very specific.
Like, so we could keep talking about the movie, but I'm like, I think we should start thinking about like how we rank this movie, because I think
it's about that time.
If we started, I would go at first. I'd be like the highest. I don't think it beats out another Monster Rally film, which would be Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. I don't think it comes close to it. I don't think it's nowhere near as good as that.
But wait a second, the ending of Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman is really bad.
Yeah, but the rest of this whole movie is all over the place. Like it doesn't know what it wants to do, and even all those pieces never like congeal in a satisfying way.
Even on that note, where you're gonna have this movie end the same way with the Wolfman and the monster fighting in the lab and everything going to it was done better in that, whereas here they're like, I don't know, just have them push over the thing, everything sets on fire and we're done. Like
that
it's
movie,
just,
and like that's the highest, but like I think it's not complete. This movie is not complete, right? Like there are merits. This movie has merits. It's just not a great movie. It is the weakest of these all of the monsters show up movies because of the plot.
And it sucks because I said it at the outset, increasingly these movies are becoming more and more what we think of as horror movies, you know? And that's Like, this movie is what I wanted out of this whole series, and I was disappointed time and again.
Cinematography speaking,
the
but
mood,
let's just start
the setting, the mood.
Let's just say
the
that
atmosphere. I could have used more lightning, though. I don't know why there wasn't. There was no lightning,
but you know, we had some cool elements. Like we also had like the rocks, the castle over the cliff. You know, things that are kind of spooky.
This movie made good strides in the direction of what I want out of a classic horror movie. I want to be in a castle the whole time. I want creepy this guy and that guy. Yeah, for some reason everybody's showing up wanting to be cured, and things aren't tied together well.
So
it's messy. And
when I go down, are you going to go up the list or down the list? Because for me, it's like going
you're
down
right.
the list.
You're right. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman is our ceiling. That is our ceiling. The floor for me is going to be Werewolf of London, just because that movie is still in that camp of like, I hate it. That doesn't mean I hate everything below it, but Werewolf of London is, this is where I eat my own words though, because Werewolf of London is messy. But that's because of one character who shouldn't be in the Yagami or whatever, shouldn't be in the movie. But all the same, I do, as weak as it is, I still like having Dracula, having the Wolfman, having Frankenstein. I know it's not perfect, but it still is more enjoyable than Werewolf of London.
For you, it's like the same argument I've made about Phantom of the Opera, where it doesn't surpass Wolfman because it just doesn't have that factor that you're wanting in these movies, right? Like that's kind of where your head's at with this and this movie. It's like you like that they have all these monsters.
It ain't perfect, but it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. And so for me, when I look at the list, I go, okay, if that's the case, I don't think it beats Invisible Woman for me, because I think Invisible Woman knows what it is and is still a lot of fun and still has kind of a, like, there is like an argument to be said. It's like, well, yeah, there's kind of goes in two different directions with the plot, but it's still like, it knows it's a screwball comedy from beginning to end. It has fun with itself. It has like a beginning, a middle, and end that is pretty clear where they're kind of going with it. You know what the villains want. They want this invisibility thing, even though it's really silly. She wants to use it for her own purposes. Of course, there's a love story there, and like, still works for me. Like, I wouldn't.
What we're dealing with, McCurdy, is the difference between a simple, singular, straightforward plot and these house movies that are tying together all these threads in a less than perfect way. That's the struggle here. That's where
I'm making that argument. I would make that same argument with Invisible Man Returns. I think Invisible Man Returns is also a better movie than this because of that same reasoning. I'd be like, I think Invisible Man Returns is also still better.
I would agree.
And so then that's when we get down to like, okay, so now we're at Mummy's Hand, The Invisible Man's Revenge, and Werewolf of London. And that's where I'm like starting to see like, this is kind of in that realm.
Yeah. My knee jerk would be that I completely agree that the cleanliness and the classiness of The Invisible Man Returns, that again, the things I accused that of was like trying too hard to be a sequel rather than being its own thing.
And it's a little convoluted in it trying to do that. Yeah. But it still works. I think it's still a good revenge. It's a good revenge fugitive. Wait, that one's no. Yes, that one's the fugitive one.
Yes.
It's still the fugitive meets the Invisible Man. It still works. I think the story's there. Then we get to one of our favorite movies on this list. It's my favorite movie that is my guilty pleasure.
One of your favorites of all time.
Of all time. My Letterboxd 4 favorite of all time. The Mummy's Hand is just great.
We like it.
I enjoy the
borderline
Mummy's Hand
ironically.
so much more. So much more than this movie.
But that's the thing.
I love the Mummy's Hand more than this movie.
Ironically, we love it ironically versus what is the better quality. Like I want House of Dracula to be all these movies. I want The Mummy's Hand to be more like House of Dracula.
Yeah, but here's my argument with that is that The Mummy's Hand, even though it's not the atmospheric spooky stuff, for what it is trying to do, because we did say it is a huge improvement over what The Mummy was. Even if it was a little schlocky and some of the set design, it's still like we still get to see them go to Egypt. We still get to see them dig up the mummy. We still see them in the camp. And it's fun. Like, it is a fun movie. It's stupid at times, but it's so much fun. Where I'm like, I like watching The Mummy's Hand more than this movie. Like,
I know.
straight up. I'd be like, I'd watch it over this movie.
I know.
So then we get to Invisible Man's Revenge.
As long as this movie is above Werewolf of London, I'm happy.
I am okay with that. But
I could also put it above Invisible Man's Revenge, though. So what were you going to say?
You could?
I could. Just because, like, and you know, I was the one standing up for Invisible Man's Revenge. I like that movie.
I know. Just remind me, what was it that because we've watched so many of these movies in a really short period of time, and there's a bunch of these revenge movies. Like I get Revenge and Returns mixed up in some ways.
Yeah.
But what about Revenge?
What was the name of this one?
Like,
does the Invisible Man return, or does he get revenge in this one? In both movies, he both returns and gets revenge. What? Is it? Just tell me there's a pair of tits in it. yes, sir. There's multiple pairs of tits, sir. As requested.
Great, you get a raise.
yeah. You're still fired. You get a raise. You keep sucking my dick.
I can't share this series with
wait, I'm
anybody.
confused. The one sucking my dick was the one I fired. You rehired. Pat's head.
I am blanking on Invisible Man's Revenge. Like that's where I'm like,
Invisible Man's Revenge.
I think that's where I feel more
rough.
comfortable with that, because we were like, Invisible Man's Revenge has less murder than you would expect in that movie. You were expecting more.
There was
murder,
no body
and there's
count.
Not. And the same with this movie. There's hardly a body count. We get
but
one.
There's
like
still
that's where
body
I'm
count.
like, there's one guy. I think one guy dies in this movie. If I recall.
Siegfried dies for some reason. He's just like, I'm gonna go kill Siegfried, who's the gardener. He's just like, I'm gonna.
He gets on his like that's
him.
the one creepy scene we get where he gets on the thing and he's like riding. He's like, no, why don't you look at me? Because you know I'm gonna kill you, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, like that.
Yeah.
That scene's great. But like that's the only time I'm like, there's somebody who dies in this movie, and then of course, the hunchback. Sorry, the hunchback
everybody dies. Other than Larry, everybody dies. You know. Like somehow Larry lives, but everybody else dies.
If that's the case, here's where I will go and wave my white flag, but it's not so much, it's more you and I like going back and forth. I think I would put this movie just above Invisible Man's Revenge for a couple of reasons. One, you get because of the atmosphere, because of the horror elements that we like, the monster Halloween feel that this movie kind of brings, I would put it above that. But also because there is a higher body count. Like, I think Revenge, I don't know, I think one guy died. This movie, at least you get Dracula, we have the Wolfman. It's I would just say because of the spectacle of this movie kind of elevates it above Invisible Man's Revenge. So I could see it below Mummy's Hand, but above Invisible Man's Revenge.
I think we're on the same page, because
I think that's a fair.
Yeah, because it's again, highest would be Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, but the weaknesses of it, the weaknesses in the script and the lost potential is where the not simple perfection, but the simplicity of the Invisible Woman and Invisible Man Returns, even though, our struggle with Invisible Man Returns is that it's confusing the first time you watch it. So is this movie. So, and then Mummy's Hand, again, ironically or unironically.
It's simple and it tells the story in a really fun way, and it's entertaining, and you're like, I'm on board with this movie. It's stupid.
That's the thing. This movie should have, like, House of Frankenstein is at number 9, and that movie has shortcomings, but this movie certainly didn't even surpass that where it should have. So regardless of behind the scenes knowledge of like no money and wars, time stuff, whatever, excuses aside, it's like, how do you up Dracula hanging out with the Wolfman, hanging out with Franky? It's disappointing,
kind of but it's a boring
still a
movie
step in the right direction. So I think that's where it doesn't surpass these simpler movies that are very entertaining and our fun romp in Egypt and The Mummy's Hand. But yeah, The Invisible Man's Revenge is like, that's the one where I was just disappointed with it, because it's like, how did nobody die in this movie?
I was disappointed with this movie too. Like, I was like, this was not my favorite of the series. I was kind of like, this is kind of a letdown.
So I think that's perfect.
I think putting it above Invisible Man's Revenge is a good call, though.
House of Dracula, number 16, below The Mummy's Hand, above The Invisible Man's Revenge. Now, McCurdy, there was zero lightning in this movie, but there's about to be now. Watch out. Terrific. It's locked in now. It should be pretty obvious who we're toasting to, because I believe this is his final picture, and he's the titular character to this film. So
we're going to toast to John Carradine. He is the father of David Carradine, who is more famously known for the Kung Fu series in the 70s, but then later in our generation, we knew him as in Kill Bill as the Bill in Kill Bill.
The Bill. Yeah.
as the Bill in Kill Bill. So yeah,
I cut
but
my
anyway,
teeth
John
on
Carradine.
Kill Bill, man. I cut my teeth on Kill Bill.
I know you did.
So.
I was there, man. But
Yeah.
John Carradine, again, I think I said this the first time we mentioned him in Invisible Man's Revenge. He was a part of this small group of actors that were in this movie called Stagecoach, which is a huge Western that was kind of the linchpin Western that got everybody on board with Westerns at a certain point in time. And everyone was like, yeah, Westerns are awesome now.
You wouldn't understand, cowboy. You've never seen an angel, nor a gentlewoman, nor a great lady. I raised gentlemen.
Not that they weren't making them before, but that was kind of like the landmark film of the time.
They ebb and flow.
That was like a big one for at the time, and he was one of those characters. He played like a gambler type, kind of a sleazeball, and he has like this really interesting look to him, and I think that is always kind of carried with him as all the movies he's done. But he's been in tons of movies since then.
He's got the longest face on record. So he makes a really good Dracula because he just kind of has that gentlemanly look, and he's gaunt. He just works in a
really
way
nice
that,
face.
Bella's
Works.
perfect, but Carradine is his
He's the gentleman
gauntliness.
Dracula, yeah. If we were like comparing this to the Bonds, like Lugosi's like the OG, but like the best, like Connery was. Lon Chaney, unfortunately, is like my favorite, like George Lazenby. And then he's like the, I don't know, what do you think? Carradine's kind of like, he's Roger Moore. He's the Roger Moore. Or is he Timothy Dalton? Is he the Timothy Dalton of Dracula's?
Ooh.
Maybe. He wasn't in good movies.
He might be Daniel Craig because he's just got a look to him. He's got a look to him that isn't like handsome, but it's like that works. That works because it's more in the demeanor than it is in the, like, oh, he's drop dead gorgeous, you know.
Sure.
So I could see that. But he's interesting to me because the moment I saw him in Bride of Frankenstein, I was like, do I know this guy? And then when he came back in Invisible Man's Revenge, I was like, do I know this guy? Like, he just has this distinct face, you know, and this very distinct voice. So I just immediately took to him, and I was pleased to hear that he was taken over as Dracula. His tenure was less than perfect, but not his fault. Certainly not his fault. So that, in that sense, he is like Timothy Dalton.
That's what I mean. It's like he was only in there. He's 2 movies.
Perfectly cast, but the movies he's in sucks, and it's not because of him. So,
but wait a minute. License to Kill is a great movie. It's not a great movie.
It is. But it should have been better. It's awesome, but you know, overall, Tim Dalton was dealt
The Living
a
Daylights is the best Bond movie. I don't understand why we never understood that.
After this, you want to get in the Discord and talk for 10 hours?
Yeah, let's talk about why
like
this
we do
movie
every other day.
Yeah, right. John Carradine.
Oh wait, he just turned into a bat, McCurdy. There he goes. There goes John Carradine. To you, sir, wherever you fly off to. Happy Halloween, John Carradine.
Happy Halloween, John Carradine.
Peace, y'all.
Think made you so successful as an image for that? Was it, I think, maybe that incredible voice?
Well, my face. Darryl Zanuck was once heard to say, when he came out of the rushes or something that I was in, he said, that guy Carradine's got the goddamnest face. What he meant by that, I don't know, but I think that was part of it.